What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Monday, May 15th, 2017, halfway through the month here, and we've got lots of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room ready to answer the phone when you call on in. Today, of course, day after Mother's Day. It's also Nakba Day, and Claire and I took a little bit of a mini staycation. We kind of pulled back from the politics for the weekend because we were so fried and everything. We come back here Monday, and oh man, it's just everything's falling apart out there. So let's get into it. Obviously, the WannaCry variants are still ravaging across the globe. What's really interesting, I'm not seeing a lot of this on the corporate media. And this is an important story. It's impacting businesses like FedEx and hospitals in Great Britain. Now, over the weekend, something rather interesting happened. Over in Britain, there's this 22-year-old blogger, still lives with his parents, and he discovered a kill switch inside the WannaCry malware. And it was really very simple. The WannaCry was going out and searching for a domain that did not exist. So this blogger just said, okay, I'm going to register the domain, and as soon as it showed up in the DNS, the WannaCry stopped propagating. Now, unfortunately, the machines that are already infected and encrypted are still infected and encrypted, but it stopped it dead. And interestingly enough, I mean, this is a real head scratcher. You've got this one guy, 22 years old, was able to stop this thing in its track. And the NSA could not, the CIA could not, the FBI could not. This one guy working on the outside crippled it. Now, does that mean the NSA, CIA, and FBI are hopelessly inept? Or is WannaCry part of an operation to cripple the Internet ahead of some grand war escalation? Or were NSA, CIA, FBI, whoever, just stealing some extra party cash for themselves? Because there's a lot of money involved when you look at the number of infections. Or is it maybe all of the above? But it is absolutely astounding that this one guy was able to find and stop WannaCry. Now, the problem is not over because already there's a new version out there. And it does have a kill switch, but this one will not stop it. It only slows it down for some reason. They're still out there. And with all the heat that is coming down on the authors of this weapon, you would think maybe they would sort of pull back, but no, they're still out there pushing it. Whoever they are, they feel they're protected. They feel that nobody is ever going to come to arrest them. And that means it may indeed be a nation state. So over the weekend, we were getting a lot of warnings. The new version was coming on out almost as soon as the 22-year-old found the kill switch. And Europol was out there saying that there was a concern. A lot of businesses were going to start business this morning, turn on their computers, and find that they were locked up with the ransomware, and some did. And the consensus of opinion among the security experts is this is not over. And it is causing all kinds of havoc. Apparently, the Bank of China, their ATMs are now shut down because this ransomware has just crippled China. It's crippled Russia. It's all over Russia. In fact, Russia so far seems to be the heaviest hit of any nation on Earth. Oddly enough, the U.S. is rather, so far, immune to this. But it underscores that you might want to think about having a plan for when the ATMs don't work, which means you might want to start thinking about keeping more of your cash at home. Now, Microsoft has come on out slamming the NSA for the mishandling of the exploits. First of all, saying that this harvesting and development and warehousing of these exploits is a disservice to the community. Because when you find an exploit, the first thing you ought to do is make it known to security experts so it can be protected against. But the NSA, every time they find or develop an exploit, they put it in their little toolbox to use just in case. And they were handling these software tools with a great deal of disregard. Microsoft says this is like letting somebody steal a Tomahawk cruise missile or a nuclear warhead. Look at the damage this one NSA tool is doing across the globe. It's devastating. There should be controls on these NSA exploit kits as rigid as surround nuclear weapons release. Even Putin is out there saying malware created by intelligence services can backfire on its creators. Basically pointing out that the majority of this WannaCry and WannaEncrypt and WannaCry 2.0 are derived from this NSA code. And to underscore the fact of just how vulnerable, what a mess the NSA's created and the CIA's created, WikiLeaks has published 2 more CIA malware, After Midnight and Assassin, that they have been developing to go on out and wreck other people's computers, including, unfortunately, law-abiding citizens and businesses. We're going to do a quick shout-out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, do you remember only last month, the heads of the Five Eyes or Echelon Spying Alliance gathered down in New Zealand for a secret surveillance conference. The timing almost seems too cute. They get together and say, what are we going to do? Everybody knows that we're spying on them. I don't know. Let's bring down the whole internet here. Or blame North Korea, Russia, and China, and Iran. We have to bomb all those people. Now, remember, a while back, I wrote an article called A Virtual 9/11, in which the U.S. government would find a way to cripple the global internet, to basically stop people from talking to each other and then use it as a pretext to go to war against whoever was going to be blamed for this. Because we know false flags are a reality. Even Israel says they're actually more afraid of hacking attacks on their computers than they are of missile attacks. Little bit of embarrassment over in Great Britain. Somebody actually asked Britain's Defense Secretary if the story that the Trident nuclear submarines were running on Windows XP, which is especially vulnerable to this malware, and he refused to either confirm or deny it. But in the end, this massive attack has shown the vulnerability of our networks, of our IT systems. And it isn't that they were designed wrong, it's that they were bored full of holes by the intelligence agencies, and now we are all paying the price for it. Now, I got a letter from Windows has rushed out some patches, including one for XP. For some reason, they didn't have one for Windows 7. But I got an email from a listener saying that the Windows 10 64-bit patch for the WannaCry ransomware attack will not install on their system. And there's a lot of problems with install. A lot of the Windows 7 and Windows 8 people turned off automatic updates during that episode when Microsoft was trying to force Windows 10 on all of us. And now we're trying to turn them back on to get the security updates, and it won't work because apparently Microsoft changed something with the Windows update, and now it won't work. It just sits there and churns, and a lot of people have sent in suggestions about how to fix it, and I've tried them, and it still doesn't work, and at this point, it's more trouble than it's worth here. All right, we're going to take some phone calls. Bob in Indiana, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Bob in Indiana, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. What is on your mind today?
Is there a book out there about the JFK incident that is just as good as the new Pearl Harbor book was for 9/11?
There are several. There's a lot of good books out about JFK, and I would say starting with Jim Garrison's On the Trail of the Assassins would be a good one. But you can do a web search, and you can find a lot of books. In fact, On the Trail of the Assassins was the basis for the script for Oliver Stone's film JFK, which is very, very accurate.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We're going to switch over to Lou in California. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, aloha. Guten Morgen. Wie geht's?
Gut, wie geht's es Ihnen?
All right, hey, Mike. I was wanting to know. Thing is, I may not be able to listen to your excellent show at various times, during the week because I have to, leave for work, at a certain time and everything. What would you recommend for a good, reliable news website to listen to, for news and stuff?
Well, first of all, I discourage anybody listening to the radio show or reading the website when you're at work. That's not fair to your employer. But, of course, go to the Republic Broadcasting website. They post stories there directly, and there's always good content in the streaming player. But, again, it really you should be doing this on your own time in your own home. That's what the podcasts are there for, so that people who are working during the actual broadcast can listen to the show later in the evening.
Yeah, because this is before I go to work, while I'm still at home, because I have to leave kind of early from here because I'm starting to go through more heavy traffic than before because the population out in this nice quiet little town is starting to grow. Okay. The other thing, Mike, with all things considered about what's going on with our computers and stuff, I have Macintosh, McAfee for my total protection on my computer and stuff. How would you rate that, or would you say there's something better to protect my computer with?
Well, McAfee is pretty good. It went downhill after John McAfee sold off the company. Kaspersky is still very highly rated. There's a lot of other stuff out there like Malwarebytes and Spybot Search and Destroy, and I can imagine all of these companies are rushing to come out with updates to their databases to try and block WannaCry from even getting into your system. So that has to be done at the firewall level. Because once it's installed on your system, things like Spybot Search and Destroy and Malwarebytes are not going to be able to do anything because you're not going to be able to get into your computer. So it has to be done at the firewall level, and if your system can still update, definitely update it. The good news for the Linux people and for the Macintosh people is that WannaCry is designed only to work on Windows platforms at this moment. Who knows what they're going to come up with next?
Okay. And how's Norton looking out there?
Norton went through the same thing as McAfee. When Peter Norton was still running the place, it was really good stuff. I tried Norton a while ago. I didn't really like it, so I don't know about the current version, but I wasn't happy with it when I had it.
Okay. And McAfee, you say, still has much to be considered with the new ownership?
Well, I don't use McAfee, so I'm really not in a position to say.
Right. Okay. But basically, even I could be affected with what the NSA is doing, with their experiments and such.
Oh, yeah, we're all wide open. We're all wide open. The government has mandated backdoors in our software, in our operating systems, at the board level, in the routers. Our computer security looks like Swiss cheese thanks to these intelligence agencies.
All right. Well, yeah, okay, Mike. You know what? Danke schön, for your show and stuff. Like I say, I'll just try to, catch you and stuff whenever I can during the week. It's just that, I just need to leave a little more earlier than usual now because, traffic concerns going to work and stuff,
Okay, well, again, that's what the podcasts are for. Thank you very much for the phone call here. We're going to switch over to Joseph in Texas. Joseph, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, that latest rocket launch in North Korea. I don't think that's the right word. It's strange to say, but do you think Putin did another good chess move with? Do you think he told basically North Korea, hey, fire it over here if you want to test it out to see if it's okay? Because if it lands in our water, the U.S. can't go recover it, and sort of, because the Russians' response to it was, oh, we're not concerned, and usually that means that they're kind of into, you know, they kind of already they kind of plan already know what's going on.
Well, first of all, I had not heard that Putin had made that offer to North Korea, and this most recent test did wind up crashing into the Sea of Japan.
Yeah, but it was closer to Russia, right? It was like 60 miles off Russia, so that's like their. I mean, the U.S. ain't gonna be able to go over there and recover it. You know what I mean? I know that's Russia's little sphere. They can go over there and they don't have to worry about it.
If it's the Sea of Japan, then yes, either the Japanese Navy or the American Navy can try and recover whatever's left. I don't imagine there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of anything left to pick up because it wasn't a soft landing. But as far as Putin telling Kim Jong-un, conduct your tests into our territorial waters, I had not heard that taking place. So
the only reason I say that is because the Russian mindset and the leadership is they look at themselves not as a unilateral world.
At this point, you're guessing.
No, because they've already but they said that. He said that.
Where did they say that? Where did they say that?
Well, he has said it. He has said it in a speech. That's why he doesn't like us going into Syria and going into Iraq.
All right, would you do me a favor? Would you do me a favor? Would you do me a favor? Send me the URL to that speech because I missed that and I would like to verify.
It's not. But you believe that, right?
No, I don't. I don't. First of all, Joseph, thank you. Quiet for a second. First of all, I don't believe anyway because believing will very often be used to take you in the wrong direction. Okay, and again,
I understand that.
Okay, and again, this test did not go into Russian territorial waters. It went into the Sea of Japan, where the Japanese Navy and the American Navy are perfectly free to pick up whatever is still floating on the surface of the impact point. So,
no, but I think you misunderstood me, Mike. I think you misunderstood me about the Russia thing. What I mean is Russia is not going to invade other countries because they don't believe that it's their right. Like the United States could. If another country says, we don't want to do something, and then the U.S. says, well, you're going against our interests, supposedly, then they have a right. That gives them justification. That's what I mean by Russia doesn't believe in a unilateral world. They believe in a multipolar world, because if they believe in a unilateral world, they would be acting like the U.S. And that's their biggest concern with the U.S. is they're mad that they're just going into all these countries and they're just violating international law. And Russia doesn't believe that because they believe in other people. They believe that there's other people in the world that deserve to be respected, right?
I think what it is that Putin does not want to get into a real shooting war with the United States. Neither does China. Nobody wants to get into a shooting war with the United States. At this point, though, most nations realize it is now inevitable because they're still moving forward with the project for the new American century. And that's the reason North Korea is testing missiles and building nuclear weapons, is in order to prevent a U.S. invasion. So anyway, Joseph, we're going to let you go. We're coming up on a commercial break here, and we're going to start with Fran in Washington, and I may have to take you through the commercial break. What is on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Aloha nui nui.
Aloha.
Hey, it would be helpful if people knew about Ron Gibson posting your shows every evening, Pacific time, about 5 p.m., and that's when it kind of starts, but it's daily, and it's a compressed version of your show. Now, possibly conflict of interest means you cannot talk about it, but I can. So these people that don't have the time in the day, like me, and, well, I'm a little older than you, actually, can go to YouTube in their evening or at their leisure, middle of the night, whatever. It's still there.
Well, actually, there is a little icon on my website that goes to the Ron Gibson page. Thank you very much, Fran. We're going to let you go here, take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to take one more phone call. Then we're going to close the phone lines for a while because I got a lot of news I need to really get through here. So, Mo in Florida, aloha. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Michael. Michael, aloha. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say, first of all, an observation. I think that and then I want to ask you a quick question and get your thoughts on just on the second part. But, you know, the first thing, what gets me is, you remember when George Bush, Papa Bush came out in the Super Bowl and he got a standing ovation? That was so discouraging to me. I thought I was going to throw up. I mean, is that how, are we just that small? How could he not be booed? And they're throwing water bottles at him and stuff. I mean, it's so pathetic. That tells you how asleep this country is, doesn't it?
Well, I didn't actually see that. So the first question would come to my mind is if they tinkered with the audio track. Because we have caught them tinkering with audio tracks when politicians are putting on an appearance where they'll add a lot of cheering and clapping and applauding to make up for silence or to cover up the fact that there may be some booing. Again, these days in the corporate media, you cannot trust anything that you see, and we actually had a couple of stories over the weekend that underscore that. One was showing this guy who makes these incredibly realistic, lifelike silicone masks, which somebody could put on, and from a distance, you don't know it's a mask. You think it's the person that the mask represents, like Donald Trump. And the other one was apparently some people in Germany have made some major improvements to this software where they can track a video and make the mouth and face do whatever they want in terms of saying things and facial expressions. And it is really eerie looking at it. And obviously corporate media is going to be acquiring these tools because they're in the business of convincing you of things that are not real.
Well, you would know, being from your background.
Yes.
The other part I was going to ask Michael is, you know, the survivors of the USS Liberty attack, you know, were shut down by, what was it, Johnson, and then they got some kind of posthumous medal in the Navy Yard. Just an insult to these valiant. They were real heroes fighting the whole story, the USS Liberty. This would be a litmus test for Trump. Why doesn't he make up for what Johnson did and give these guys a full honor in front of the country? If he didn't do that, what does it tell you, Michael?
It tells you that the Israel stranglehold on the government is still very real and very, very powerful. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the Liberty survived a sneak attack by an ally, and it was all covered up and hushed over. Captain McGonigal received the Congressional Medal of Honor, and it was the only Congressional Medal of Honor not awarded by the President himself at the White House. It was awarded to him in a private ceremony at the Navy Yard where the public and press were kept on out. It was an insult to those crew members of the USS Liberty, and many of them were decorated, but they were also told, if you talk about this to anybody, you are going to military prison and you're never coming out. And the mastermind of that cover-up was Admiral John McCain, father of Senator Songbird McCain.
Well, I demand Trump to give these guys their due. It's like the Japanese, prisoners in World War II. I demand him to give these heroes a hearing or a public display of an apology and do it very public, or he's not a patriot. That's what I say, Michael. Thanks for taking my call. I love your show. Bye.
You got it, and it should be soon because, unfortunately, every year goes by, there are fewer and fewer of those survivors left. I understand that they're getting another get-together because next month we're coming up again on the anniversary of Israel's attempt to sink the USS Liberty and frame Egypt for it. And they are owed recognition for what they went through. And this would be a good opportunity for Donald Trump to send a message to those who supported him that he really does want to drain the swamp. Because the handling of the USS Liberty incident is one of the stinkiest and deepest parts of that swamp. All right, we're going to close the phone lines for a little while here while I get through some news. Now, the director of the NSA, Admiral Mike Rogers, is out there still screaming, Russia hacked the election, Russia hacked the election. And what he wants to do about it is going to raise hairs on the back of your neck. We will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. So we're talking about the director of the NSA, Admiral Mike Rogers, and he's out there still screaming about Russia hacked the election, Russia hacked the election, Russia hacked the election. No evidence whatsoever. But they're using it to try and sell the idea that the U.S. intelligence agencies ought to have a wider role in the U.S. elections. In other words, they want to have their fingers on the election process. That's like having Jeffrey Dahmer investigating whether there's cannibalism going on up in Milwaukee. I mean, if you look at the U.S. interfering in elections in other countries, it's always handled through those intelligence agencies. And Rogers specifically made mention of our election, the British election, and the French election. So the NSA wants a direct connection to elections in the U.S., where Donald Trump threw a monkey wrench into the globalist plans, and Great Britain, where Brexit threw a monkey wrench into the globalist plans, and France, where Le Pen almost threw a monkey wrench into the globalist plans. I agree we need a new election system, but letting the intelligence agencies run it absolutely guarantees the end of democracy in this country. Should absolutely be opposed. Now, interesting story coming out of Press TV, no less. Apparently, Donald Trump is considering a major shakeup in the White House staff, possibly going all the way to the Chief of Staff. And this may be Donald Trump reasserting the Donald Trump that we all saw campaigning last year. He may have finally woken up and realized that the people he's got around him are controlling him, corralling him, using him for their own particular agendas, and maybe he's getting ready to do a lot of his "you're fired" spiels. And apparently, according to Press TV, the Chief of Staff, Bannon, and even Sean Spicer are some of the officials who may be included in what's being described as a major reboot. Which, I mean, I thought Spicer was doing a good job, to be very honest. But I don't know what's going on inside the White House. But definitely, I think if Trump could get some of those neocon war hawks out, we might actually see a change in direction in this country. We are now getting confirmation. As you know, the Department of Justice is interviewing people as a new head of the FBI. And supposedly Trey Gowdy was at the top of Trump's list. And Trey Gowdy has now said that, yes, he is in fact interested in being the next head of the FBI, and I would sure love to see that happen. Trey Gowdy is one of the very few straight shooters there in Washington, D.C. I've been watching him for a very, very long time. You've all been watching and listening to him. He doesn't believe in bias and cover-up. He goes right for where the crimes are. And I would love to see him in that top position at the FBI, and I'd like to see him clean out that part of the FBI that's involved in political repression, which is a big part of the FBI's job going all the way back to COINTELPRO. Trey Gowdy could actually turn the FBI into the agency we see in the films and TV shows. That would be really good. Now, a whistleblower has come forward saying that while he was still director of the FBI, James Comey seized and buried volumes of information that demonstrated that President Obama was in fact spying on Donald Trump's campaign, and Comey buried it. And now Larry Klayman is filing a Freedom of Information Act for all that information, and pointing out that Comey never acknowledged or acted on this evidence from the whistleblower. Now, Paul Craig Roberts, we've been talking about him a lot. He's out there sounding a warning that elements within the U.S. government are actually seriously considering a nuclear first strike against Russia. And they're literally gambling with the entire country because the group think, the magic think is, we will strike Russia so hard they'll be afraid to retaliate because of our second strike capability. That's really out there. That's sloppy analysis. Paul Craig Roberts is now out there saying that he's getting a sense Trump will not be president much longer. The only question is how Trump will leave office. And this gets down to this rumor, and it is only a rumor, that there is some kind of an indictment, a sealed indictment against Donald Trump for his connections to Russia. And it is sealed, and because he is the president and has executive immunity, it won't be unsealed until after he's out of office. And this, of course, is fodder for the Get Trump people. Oh, there's an indictment. See, there must be something to the Russia connection. There's an indictment. Not necessarily. An indictment is an accusation. Could be totally bogus. But it's being used as a smear campaign. Oh, there's an indictment. It's sealed. We can't tell you what's in it. Can't open it up while Trump is still president, but it's there. So there must be something to the Russia connection. Really out there. Now, remember, we have seen ample documentation, both from within the U.S. government and from within ISIS, that Hillary and Obama backed ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria, which technically amounts to an act of treason, because ISIS and Al-Qaeda, we were told, were our enemies in the war on terror, and giving aid and comfort to the enemy in time of war is treason. And I want you to keep that in mind, because apparently a big part of it is after the overthrow of Gaddafi, weapons were being smuggled from Libya to Syria using that embassy at Benghazi as the hub. That was the smuggling hub. And we'll never know, of course, because it all burned down and all the paper records burned down and there's no evidence left here. But I think something was really there, and even Trump is saying we shouldn't let it out. Remember when I talk about secrets in Washington, D.C., there are two kinds of secrets. There are the little ones, the scandals that can be used as fodder for the political infighting, like what Anthony Weiner was doing on his laptop with underage girls. Then there are the great secrets, the ones that are so horrible that if the American people became aware of them, it would instantly delegitimize the government. The truth behind JFK, the truth behind 9/11, and so forth and so on. And so now we're finding that Judicial Watch is trying to file a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit over the Benghazi records, and the Trump administration is asking the court to have a ruling to keep the information hidden. And that tells us there is something very, very dark and nasty that was going on. Because if nothing was going on, they'd let the records out. Stop fueling suspicion. Getting more and more articles saying it's time to start indicting people. Comey obstructed justice. Hillary Clinton mishandled classified information. Why are these people not yet being arrested? Another very interesting story, very alarming story, because this sort of stuff does go on. This is over at Your News Wire. We were all kind of surprised when Jason Chaffetz, who's another one of the straight shooters in Congress who was going after the corrupt, all of a sudden announced he wasn't going to run for re-election, and then stepped up and said he might not even finish his term. And everyone was saying, what was going on? Something had to be going on behind the scenes. Well, according to this article from Your News Wire, Chaffetz literally was receiving death threats, not just to himself, but to his entire family. And unless he bowed out. And apparently the big issue was not so much his going after the Clinton Foundation and Hillary and email and everything, but his work on trying to get an audit of the Federal Reserve. And according to an unnamed FBI insider, basically he said, you don't go after the Fed. Nobody goes after the Federal Reserve and gets away with it. And again, go back and read All Wars Are Bankers' Wars, and you'll see it time and time again. Anybody who crosses the private central bankers, bad things happen to them. All right, let's get over to the war zones here. Apparently, government forces are making large gains in Aleppo and Damascus. And so they're moving on forward. And the desperation to somehow reverse the trend and get the U.S. back in there and get Assad out is underscored by the fact that they're beginning to drop all this illusion about a moderate rebel and so forth and so on, because there's this story that came on out of Zero Hedge and a bunch of other places. Apparently, ISIS commanders are now working with the so-called moderate Syrian rebels, the ones the U.S. has been supplying. So there never really was a line between them. The moderate rebels was a fiction. to allow the U.S. to arm these terrorists and use them as proxies against Assad. Now, we reported last week that U.S. forces were entering southern Syria. Now they're joined by British forces. And this article at Activist Post is asking, is a bigger battle shaping up? And it could very well be. A video has come on out showing U.S. troops with al-Nusra fighting against the Syrian forces. And the al-Nusra fighters are shouting, Allah Akbar. The U.S. forces are just there pulling the triggers here. So, of course, we had to have some kind of a new BS story, new piece of bovine excrement about why Assad is evil and why we've got to go on in there. We keep hearing all these stories about Assad is killing his own people, Assad is killing his own people. They always turn out to be fake, or they turn out not to actually be any bodies. So they've decided to solve that one. This is all over the place. AP was reporting this, Fox News is reporting this. Syrian regime using crematorium to cover up their mass murders. This is coming from the U.S. State Department, where they're actually saying there's a military prison north of Damascus. And they took a satellite photo of it, and one section of the roof, the snow has melted. That is it. That's all they have. And from there they go to, obviously, there are crematoriums in there, and they're just burning all these bodies to get rid of them to cover up their war crimes. Now, you should look at the photo. It's all over the place. And it is a prison, no question about it. And there is one area of the roof where the snow has melted. How do we know that isn't the kitchen area? How do we know that isn't the prison laundry with all those big dryers putting out all that heat? And remember what I said about look for what should be there and isn't? Look at that photo of the so-called crematorium and tell me what isn't there. Smokestacks. Look at photos of crematoriums, any funeral home in the world. They have big, thick, tall smokestacks because they don't want that smell on the ground. They want to push it way up in the air so the wind will disperse it. There are no big, tall smokestacks over this section of the building. It's just more becks being thrown at you to sell you yet another war. Apparently, Germany is having a major diplomatic dust-up with Turkey. And apparently Turkey refused to allow German politicians to visit the soldiers who are still encircled at Incirlik Air Base. And as a result, Merkel is now withdrawing all German forces from Turkey, just yanking them out. I think that might be a really, really good thing in the long run. All right, so let's talk about North Korea's latest test. And the headlines all over is, oh, new incredible range rocket, new incredible range rocket. Actually, no. It's a mid-range rocket. At its absolute longest range, it can reach 2,000 kilometers. And it certainly does not have the long range of the Taepodong 2 or the Taepodong 3. And even Pacific Command here in Hawaii is saying it really is not an ICBM. It's a medium-range rocket. Now, North Korea is saying it potentially could carry a nuclear warhead, which would be a really good reason not to be invading North Korea. Putin is saying, really, it's the rest of the world intimidating North Korea that's driving this forward. And he's absolutely right. Kim Jong-un is looking at the United States, a country that has invaded, drone-struck, regime changed country after country after country after country, and now obviously has its gun sights on North Korea. Yes, it's going to be making him nervous. And yes, he's going to be doing everything in his power to create a defensive system that will discourage an actual invasion. Now, as you know, the election of Moon Jae-in in South Korea has thrown a major monkey wrench into the works, because Moon Jae-in, on his inauguration, wants to reach across the DMZ and shake Kim Jong-un's hand and say, let's tone this down. This is ridiculous. We're being goaded to fight by powers outside our borders. Let's not get suckered into it. And obviously this pulls the rug out from the U.S. Desire to go on in and regime change North Korea. And so Donald Trump has actually warned the South Korean president not to talk to North Korea. There should be no talks. North Korea does what we say or we will invade, and that's it. I don't think South Korea's president is going to listen to that, because it would be utterly absurd for the United States to all of a sudden discover they have a reason to reinvade South Korea. Now, up at the United Nations, Nikki Haley is out there screaming that Kim Jong-un is in a state of paranoia. He's dangerous. He's paranoid. Yeah, again. Kim Jong-un is looking across the Pacific Ocean at a United States that has killed an estimated 20 million people in 37 different countries since the end of World War II. He knows he is in that government's crosshairs. Of course he's going to be scared. He's going to be paranoid. Who would be in that position who wouldn't be feeling the pressure? Over in Moldova, their president is opposing calls to join NATO, and saying that they actually want to partner with Russia. So there goes another country pivoting to Russia, and another country on the U.S. government's to be invaded special high interest targets list. Meanwhile, Rex Tillerson, in an interview on NBC, is out there saying there's no way to reset Russian relations. We have to move forward. We're moving forward here. We want a new Cold War. We worked for it. We deserve it. And nobody's going to stop us from having it. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to skip on back to the WannaCry malware and its new variant that is out there. And apparently so many people are trying to download the emergency patches. Microsoft's servers are struggling to keep up, and a lot of people are having to wait or go away and come on back. Be very careful about anybody saying you can get the patches at a non-Microsoft website, because you could wind up putting even worse malware on your system. You should never install drivers or patches from third-party websites, because that is a very popular vector for the malware getting on in there. Interesting story, Joe Joseph over the Daily Sheeple is making a comment similar to what I made on Friday when this thing was first surfacing. What if this worm, this NSA worm, instead of carrying ransomware, were carrying other forms of payload, something that wasn't really visible. You didn't know you were infected. And it could be set up to, at some signal, format your entire hard drive. And so Joe is out there saying, if this clearly could be used to attack the power grid and other infrastructure. Now, most power stations are run on air-gapped computers for precisely that reason, but the remote transformers and switching centers are accessed over the regular internet. And they could be messed around, cause overloads, cause meltdowns. The NSA was supposed to be guarding our nation's IT security and safety, and instead, with all these wormholes they've bored through it, we are actually, in fact, wide open to a cyber attack right now. And it's all the fault of the NSA, the CIA, and by extension, the U.S. government itself. All right, let's get into the economic news here. Apparently, China's Grand Silk Road Summit is off to a rocky start. China is getting ready to invest a huge amount of money in building a new Silk Road for travel and cargo transportation from Asia to Europe in order to not have to put it on cargo ships and sail it around India and through the Suez Canal and so forth. They're going to have a high-speed rail transport system on there, and it is going to be wonderful if and when they get it working. India is already having second thoughts about participating, saying that it's going to lead to unsustainable debt for all the countries that are involved, that they may have to borrow so much money to make it work, it may never pencil out. I know that feeling. We're dealing with that with the light rail system here on Oahu. Apparently up in Toronto, Home Capital is having a lot of people start to pull their money out because apparently they've been using the bank deposits to fund mortgage lending, which would be okay, except that Canada appears to be in a real estate mortgage bubble very similar to what happened here in the United States in 2008. Okay, we're going to take a break for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 2 after these few words.